All right, welcome to the next session of the Gunfighter series. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, some injury stuff, return to play. You guys had any injuries in the last couple of years you want to kind of talk about ahead of
time? The last like serious injury I had was an elbow from jiu-jitsu that put me out, and that's when I started working with some athletic trainers instead of just regular docs and getting some positive results. But I can't remember the tendon, but like the one you get the tennis elbow in, I got that like strained, popped in an arm lock, which is real common.
Yep.
That was about my last serious one, that acute one that put me out for a while.
How long did that take you to come back?
I was probably out I was out 4 weeks from training, rolling. So I was able to drill after about 2 weeks, but that was really about it.
From you got any big injuries?
I got,
well, it's gonna be a laundry list.
I know, right? Like I'm gonna pull out my my med pros and right. Get all crazy. So I guess the two largest injuries that have caused the most amount of adjustment. I tore my posterior tibial tendon on my right ankle. So okay. What that tendon does, and I didn't even, whatever, I'm not a doctor, so I don't pay attention to that stuff. It's the tendon that wraps around from under your calf all the way under your foot and creates the arch essentially. So my right foot doesn't have an arch whatsoever. So it's a long recovery. It's like a 13-month recovery because they have to essentially reattach the tendon with screws into the bottom of your foot, all that jive. It doesn't necessarily cause any more pain, not fixing it. So I opted not fix it. I just have a flat foot on that side. It hasn't caused any imbalances. I have low arches anyway. It's just genetic play out. So it didn't cause any imbalance, like any hips or knee injury or issues with that, with my gait. So that was a tough one just to recover initially from, but it doesn't bother me anymore other than like from that. There's like some scar tissue that's built up in there a little bit here and there from the tear at the tear site, and I have a herniated disc L4 L5 on the right side that I normally watch out for with any injury or back stuff. Just it's managed. Again, I'm 40, so I manage manage that. It's not so bad. Army docs wanted to do surgery right away, as always, but traction was like my savior, along with dry needling and stuff like that. So I'm quite, I rarely have a flare up or anything with it anymore, just with regular yoga and just keeping active, really. Building up my back more than protecting it, as a lot of times we tend to do. But other than that, nothing crazy. I mean, for jumping out of airplanes for so long, my knees are good, my hips are good, my ankles are decent. I mean, probably ankles are my weak point right now. Just trying not to twist them and stuff like that. Especially with that posterior tibial tendon to the right foot, I have almost zero balance on that one. But whatever, nothing too crazy.
Yeah. I'll kind of give you guys a quick rundown, and I'll go over what happened on Tuesday. So my biggest one was piriformis muscle, which is kind of in the back. It connects your realistically, it kind of makes the connection between your lower back and your hip, and so it has a pretty big impact on anything lower body related, anything really with the core, that kind of stuff. It just really kind of throws things off quite a bit. That took me about 6 weeks to recover from. I was overseas, probably didn't get any real therapy. All they gave me was Motrin, and that was it. And that was probably the third time in the last decade that I've actually used Motrin, and I think I only used it once. Personally, it just doesn't really do it for me. So I had that one was a big one. That's kind of led to a lot of hip issues over the years, combined with me being longer limbed and things like that. A couple years ago, let's see, so I think it was 2015, 2016, I had hips. I don't know what happened, but it may have been a progression from that thing that just got so bad. It got to the point where I wasn't able to jump, I couldn't sprint, and I didn't think I was ever going to be able to do that stuff again. So able to rehab myself out of that, obviously. Now I can run, jump, sprint, all that stuff without too much issue. Yeah, I think all that actually stemmed from sitting too much. Like, just because I was so used to being active that I actually just sat. And in class, I had, went to my basic course, and I was 8.5 months, and it was 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And, just my body wasn't used to that. So I have this thing where my body adapts very quickly, but it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It just adapts. So that's, it's kind of it's a pro and a con. After that, I was playing hockey. I strained a calf muscle, just the outside of my calf. Went and saw a doc, and normally I would expect that to take me about 6 weeks to recover from. He's got this thing called piezo wave. So you're talking about your scar tissue. What the piezo wave does is it's like an ultrasound that actually repairs scar tissue inside. It's super nuts. So I got 2 sessions within a week. I was 100% the next week. Crazy. I don't know how, but whatever the thing is, it works. So this last one was Tuesday. I was telling you guys in the group that I was racing with one of the other fastest guys in the league. We're racing the ball, and I was in probably the fastest sprint I've had in hockey yet, just because I'm a little bit faster now. And coming up in the ball, I started to slow down. And my third step, I stopped on a dime, just boom, just stopped, which would have been an amazing stop if I hadn't just felt an explosion inside my knee. So did not feel so great. I tried putting weight on it. That was not great. So I could feel it on kind of the outside of my calf, kind of back behind the knee. It just kind of felt like an explosion, and then went back in. So it didn't feel like a pop. It kind of felt like an immediate shock. Came out, came back in. I immediately went to do active movement. So I did a lot of walking. I was swinging my leg around, just that kind of stuff. Because I've from what I've studied over the years is that if you can immediately just keep movement and keep range of motion within the injured area to a point where it's not excessively painful, your recovery time will be vastly accelerated. So that's what I did on Tuesday night. I took some collagen powder. And so one of my strategies is I did not want to stop the inflammation process, but I did want to get some collagen in there to help repair the tissue as much as possible. And I took ZMA, full dose of ZMA that night, so zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6. The next day I went and saw Dr. Groves. So that was yesterday, Wednesday. He did some actual therapy stuff, some ART stuff, the active release stuff. He did his chiro stuff. We did some neurological stuff, and then he put me in. You guys have probably seen the leggings that like go on your legs. It does the compression thing. So we did that for moving the lymph fluid around, as well as trying to keep the fluid out of the joint itself. And then at the same time, he's got this weird EMF thing that changes everything at the cellular level. It's crazy. Anyways, I laid that on there. Sat in the boots. Just kind of reclined, chilled out for about 30 minutes. Went back, and by this morning I was 50% better already. Yesterday I couldn't walk upstairs without using the handrail. I was walking super slow. I would say right now I'm probably 80% my normal speed. My gait still is a little bit off, but I went for another session today with Doc. Did the same thing, strapped up the boots, and got the little EMF thing. Did that. Now, from the Cal side, what I did prior to today's recovery session is I did his vestibular activation resets. And I did that prior to the recovery. So I'm going to see if that's going to have a huge difference. This morning when I woke up, my HRV was actually really good. Had really good parasympathetic, really good sympathetic, which indicates pretty good recovery. I did take 10,000 IU vitamin D yesterday, 10,000 today. And I did do cod liver oil, which has vitamin A, vitamin D, and fish oil. So those have been kind of my nutrition strategies, along with just eating a lot of protein. And yeah, so far, like I feel at least 50% better this morning. By this afternoon, I would say I'm probably 75%. It's still gonna be a couple of weeks before I sprint again. But really fast recovery so far. Doc's got some crazy stuff, and yeah, Ephraim, if you come back, I would definitely check out his PZO wave. We could probably fix a lot of that scar tissue down there.
Yeah, I wanna. That sounds pretty awesome. I had the first time I ever thought or heard of something, I guess similar to that. There was a coworker of mine who had pretty bad case of plantar fasciitis, and she went into it was something sonic, whatever, but it was outpatient, but she was knocked out for it. So they knocked her out completely. And then they did that. It was like one session, and it broke up all that tissue and everything in her arches, and it really worked. Like, it was one thing. I think she couldn't walk. Like, she had to just walk for like 4 weeks, like no running whatsoever. But after that, solid. So that was pretty cool in that. So I'm just assuming, again, I'll have to look it up. I'm gonna look it up after we get out. Check out that PZO stuff. It sounds,
I think it's again. I think it's PIEZO wave.
Okay.
PIZO wave. Yeah, it's a pretty expensive machine. I think it's like, I don't know, $20,000-$30,000, whatever. But Doc's got it here, so I just go in. I'm not going to do it on mine. I asked him today when I should do it. He said next week. So we're going to wait to get a little bit of the natural processes going, and then I'm going to go in and try to hit that tissue up and see if we can clean that stuff up.
Good deal. What real quick, just on your injury that you were saying so was it like the kneecap? Did it feel like what popped? What was the? I'm just trying to see. I'm just trying to visualize.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. So when I stomped on the ground and I hit that hard stop, I'm like, oh man, that's an amazing stop. Like, I stepped on a dime. I'm like, and then I felt like the entire knee kind of explode out and come back in. And so I was wow, that doesn't feel good. So it did feel like a pop. It just felt like this explosion of fiber, and then it came back together. Yep. And then the pain initially was right back of the knee, up where the calf and the knee kind of meet up. So the suspicion right now, basically what Doc suspects, is that I stopped and my femur didn't. So what it did is basically stretch the posterior cruciate ligament, the PCL. I gave that a pretty good stretch. Now, throughout yesterday, I got a lot of almost like a muscle pump on the muscles on the quad, below the knee, and a little bit of calf, and a little bit of the hamstring. And some of that was swollen, but a lot of it was just like, it felt very full. But it wasn't as swollen until yesterday evening. And actually this morning it was more swollen, but it didn't hurt as much, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
And I guess from to kind of tie in the training stuff, so we had just finished the isometric phase last week. And so when we look at Cal's 2-spring model, you look at, are the muscle and the connective tissue the same level of strength, the same level of rigidness, and things like that, where they have the same capacity. And so when you finish an isometric phase, your muscles are going to be a little bit larger on that. And so when we're coming into this power phase, which we're getting into now, is what's going to help expand the ligament capacity and the tendon capacity. So since we hadn't quite hit that yet, that's my suspicion, is that I think the tendon wasn't quite as prepared as the muscles were. So I was able to stop on a dime with my muscles, and the tendon's just going to handle that force.
Yep, they weren't as pliable as they could be yet.
Yep. And Grant, the triphasic is designed as more of an off season, a couple times per year. So coming out of an isometric phase, but I play hockey, and honestly, it wouldn't have been an issue, except that was the fastest sprint I've ever sprinted in a game. And it's just me and the fastest guy in the league. So we're racing to the ball, so it was just kind of one of those happenstance kind of things, just happened to be timing. The only thing I would say that I might change in the future is I might be a little bit more consistent on the backwards walking. So I did order the Spud sled that they have for the ACFT. I did order that this morning. So that way I can do that more consistently, because we don't have one at work. So.
Right on. I like, so I really like the I guess the pacing of it, of what you do, what those exercises are.
Yep.
how you're doing them, because it's grouped differently too than like a traditional, and I'm dumb when it comes to fitness, other than, just good genetics and just following what the Army has had, right? So I've followed some programs, but it was just
Sure.
all maintenance, really. It was never
Yeah.
truly real breakdown. And so the grouping of this is non-traditional in the sense of you might work out some of the same things,
Sure.
kind of back to back, but it's a different load, a different method of it. And I'm finding my recovery for stuff is so much faster. So I'm not gonna, throw out numbers because I don't have scientific method or anything.
Sure.
But I'm almost half as fast when it comes to recovery of max output, and then do it again, and then max output, do it again, without a penalty, if you would, over the longer period. So that's the first thing that I've seen on that. And my I think I've been benefiting from the knees over toes stuff a lot.
Sure.
I don't think I've paid attention enough before, and that's helped my squatting and even deadlifting, just placement of my foot moving. I mean, even running, I feel more stable in where, where my feet are underneath my hips, my leg, the different types of strides. So that's, for me, that it's already a win-win for me, because I'm already there in the sense of something better than I've ever had.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's one of the things I think I've mentioned before with the triphasic is, like, I can go from doing one of the days in the program to 2 hours later being on the jujitsu mat and actually move better. I'm not wiped out, right? I still have the ability to function, or like I can go back into work and do stuff. Because of the way that's programmed out and the recovery stuff. And I think that makes a big difference. Nate, have you tried knees over toes since the injury? Have you done anything?
Yeah. So, and I'll kind of backtrack a little bit on one comment. So I think one of my things for fast recovery is what we're talking about, kind of that recovery process. So I think that's definitely helping. Knees over toe stuff, as far as that goes, I did backwards walking today, and that was not an issue. Last night, going downstairs was definitely very uncomfortable, and I was able to go up and downstairs today, no problem. So I did backwards walking today, and then I did actually the sprained ankle work. So I did that. Not super comfortable on the left knee, but perfectly fine on the other side. And so those are the two things I hit today. I was going to try to hit some upper body just to have time, but I feel comfortable doing that. So I think my plan for now is to stay off of loaded movements for the lower body. Obviously the right leg, I'll load that up. And then on the left side, I'm just going to go through more patterns. As far as the rest of the knees over toe stuff, I think, so one of the things that feels really weird is completely locking out the knee. Feels like you're going to hyperextend. And so I haven't gotten too much into the stretching stuff, but I think that's something that it needs. I just have to take it really slow.
Yeah.
I know. Interesting. So I traditionally, I haven't had any knee problems whatsoever, other than maybe I've done some karaoke sometimes where I'll switch, I'll start up from a different, one way to the next way, and my knee will feel not like a sharp pain, but like a weird, like maybe the kneecap wasn't set right, or something. I moved my leg or whatever, but it immediately goes away. There's no issue. I shake it out, and half a second later, it's I'm no problem. But I'm just always curious to see the methods of it, because it's such an important thing. It's one of those joints that we have not figured out yet, right? I mean, like I could feel comfortable right now getting a hip replacement more than I would ever get a knee replacement. If that ever came to that, it's the same. Like if my foot got tore up, Yeah, shoulders too. That's the other one.
Yep.
Shoulders and knees are like the things.
We don't know.
Right? Disc replacements are even easier than recovery on this stuff.
Sure.
For it, but like, shoot, if you would think is like, even if your foot got trashed up and it could never be the same again, I would get that foot cut off so fast. Not even a thing. Like, no problem. But when it hits the knee, we're gonna really look at rehab for that one. Like, that's a whole nother ball game. I was just curious.
Yeah, and I think just in general, like I've mentioned this before, like I don't think we honestly know much about the human body as much as we think we do. Everybody's like, oh, we know this. It's like,
yeah.
I would absolutely agree with you on that. I mean, and we don't even have to get into the complicatedness of like a brain, like not even understand the brain. Like, just like you said, a hip, a knee, and a shoulder. Those are vastly different things on what we can actually do with the body on that.
Sure. And just kind of further on yours, Mick, I did remember that this morning I did do the morning mobility, but I did the stand-up version that I was supposed to do yesterday. And I was able to do that whole thing. A little bit of issue with the individual knee rotations, but outside that, everything else was fine. I was able to put weight on it. A little bit of issues, but nothing crazy. It was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of you talked about it, about keeping it mobile and compression.
Yep.
I tell guys now that old rice, you remember the old rice?
Gone. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Gone. Yeah. Get rid of. And I still hear people say it, and I'm like, no. The only thing out of rice that's good is compression and elevation.
Yep.
When you're not doing something.
Sure.
But you need to keep that joint mobilized. You need to keep it moving. You need to let swelling happen.
Yep.
And the way you control the swelling is compression. I've become a big believer in that when I've had like my elbow thing, when I've had some of my guys, twist stuff, hurt stuff.
Yep.
I'm a big believer in getting rid of that whole resting it and icing it. And it's like, yeah, you don't have to come out and do your full workout, but you need to do some kind of mobility. You need to do something.
Yep. And
you need to focus on compression with it. Like, even just simple compression sleeves, I think, make a world of difference.
Yep. That's what Doc recommended. He's like, yeah, man, go get a knee sleeve. So I've been wearing the knee sleeve on and off. Sometimes it gets too much. I just take it down. But I do that. He said if I had some voodoo bands or whatever, just, toss that on there and do movement with that. I had a gal, she was probably, 15 or 16, volleyball player a couple years back. She had jumped, and you heard that as soon as she hit the floor. I'm like, uh-oh. So I go over there and I just did some real light movement and got that ankle moving. Within a week, she was jumping again. And granted, that's not the only case, but had she put that in a cast and stayed mobilized, I'm pretty sure she would not have been jumping a week later.
Yeah, I just think that as soon as you start mobilizing dudes, it lets all that scar tissue build up, and they don't do anything post scar tissue.
Yep.
I mean, just keeping that movement I think is huge.
I have a perfect example of that. So like, just 2 weekends ago, my wife did a Ragnar race with a team, and on the second leg that she did, she popped her ankle on one of the trails like at midnight, and she's like, I heard it pop. I knew it went down, but I just kept. I went through its full range of motion and everything, and she put a compression sleeve on, and she didn't have or her compression sock or whatever. She didn't have a brace or anything like that, but had some really tight compression ones. Elevated it after she got back, so she had 2.5 miles to get back, and then she felt good enough, kept moving it the entire time, finished the next leg, the 5.6 or the 6 miles on the next one, and felt great, fine. Had a good stride and everything. It was only after she stopped and sat in the car for the drive home, and then the day after, just sitting around, not moving it, it swole up huge. Like when she took pictures the first night, it wasn't anything. It was fine. I was like, I don't see any swelling to begin with. But the day after, with no movement, thinking, old school ice, elevation, keeping it cold and not doing anything on it, it swelled up twice its size, and then going to the doctor and everything. So absolutely, I mean, if we had kept on that, what we did, and it's hard to break that mindset of, oh no, I have to isolate it and not move it anymore. I mean, she would have been good.
I got a lot of I think it was Eric Cressy had a guy that invented, I want to say it's the Mark Pro. You guys familiar with the stim systems? They're kind of like 10s, but they're different frequencies and whatnot. Basically, it just pulses the muscle.
So like warm-up stuff, you can do warm-up stuff with it and everything?
You can do warm-ups, you can do rehab, you can do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah, I am familiar.
Yeah. So Eric Cressy, who's a baseball guy, he had this dude on, and he's taken MLB players. He's like, man, normally this would take them 6 weeks to recover from, and within 2 days, they're able to play at like international level competition just by using the stimulation of the Mark Pro. Basically what it does is it just stimulates fluid in, getting the good stuff in, and getting the good stuff out. And so that's what I tell the softball girls. I'm like, the whole goal of recovery, whether it's an injury, whether it's for another game, whether it's for, the next week, is to get the good stuff in, nutrition, water, nutrients, all that good stuff, and getting the bad stuff out. Like, so to do that, you just need blood flow. And however you do that blood flow, it's whatever works for you. If it's hot and cold baths, if it's, doing some foam rolling, if it's doing, complicated stuff like Mark Pro, or a Compex or something like that, or, doing stuff like Doc had doing with the compression sleeves where they, it cycles through the compressions, stuff like that. Just moving that blood flow and lymph as well helps get all that stuff in and out.
Yeah. The only thing in my gym for my fighters that I use ice for is impact swelling, right?
Yep.
Guys' eyebrows, noses, stuff like that. Your ice and compression works there, but otherwise, when somebody has something go on with their joint, I try and get them to not be like, I need an ice pack. Like it's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Move around.
Yep. And there's
about ice overall. So like ice baths and stuff. What is the professional opinion on that stuff and everything? Because I ask because having opportunities and stuff like that to possibly use them and everything. I've never, again, I just out of ignorance. I don't know. I've never. What's the behind that?
So the ice in general. This is one of the things that I wish I could remember the name of the guy that was on Eric Cressy's podcast, but he brought up that if you actually take the temperature of the muscle that you're trying to impact, it's not actually changing with ice. It's just the skin. And so you're not actually affecting it. But what you can get is you can get a numbing effect, in which case somebody will move more, in which case then we're getting that mobility that we're looking for. So it's almost like a psychosomatic thing where it's like if you get, if ice works for somebody to move them better, then that might help. And if you're doing it as a modality for recovery, you may do really ice and then really hot, ice and hot, and that'll move the blood flow. So there's kind of two things to it. It's not ice is always bad. It's ice is probably not preferred for most people, unless you're doing it as hot and cold, or it works to help you move the area without like an NSAID or anti-inflammatory.
So just like you said, good stuff in, bad stuff out.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Ned, you're at the gym. What's up? Maybe you can hear us. I don't know. It's probably got unmuted.
He's getting those gains.
Man, he's been crushing it with those lifts.
I can hear you guys.
Yeah,
it's cool. Just noisy in here, so I've got it on mute.
That's cool.
So I'm got one more set of bench left to do, and then I'm out.
Get it.
So.
And you got
You'll hear some.
See, I think are you on speed? Are you on speed work today?
I'm doing what did I have? Box step ups.
Yep.
Bench press, medicine ball throws, that stuff.
Yeah, I think you got looks like speed stuff. You got the concentric. 55 to 80%. So that's all your speed work. Nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute you guys real quick again, just to so
Yeah.
you don't hear me smashing medicine balls.
Smashing things is good. Yeah, man. What do you guys? What else you guys got for? Yeah, go ahead.
What's your when we talk about recovery? What's your feeling on? I know it's generally your general feeling on it. I'm sure is to avoid NSAIDs and stuff like that. But do you feel like they fit in anywhere?
I think it's similar to the ice thing. If it gets somebody to move the area more, it may be helpful. From a chemical standpoint, it is going to inhibit all the good stuff getting in, because it is going to mitigate some of that inflammation process that we're actually looking for. So it's kind of like a give and take. Like, Ned, you're supposed to mute it.
Sorry.
Smash it, Ned. Smash it.
So yeah, I mean,
All right, going back on mute.
Yeah. So I think it really is individual on, if what is going to get them to move better versus the inflammation, effect of what we want to get the good stuff in and get those cytokines working and all that stuff. So me personally, like, I just don't take that stuff just because I try to keep fairly clean. I don't take any medications and stuff. I think the one I told you, the Paraformis, I took one Motrin. There was one that had to control swelling. It wasn't injury related or soft tissue or anything like that. So I had to take it then. And then I had to take antibiotics when I had possible tick bite this summer from training. And so that's about all the medication. I take it back. I had allergy meds once, I think, last year. And that's, so, I mean, I can pretty much list all the medicine that I've had in the last 20 years just because I don't take them.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. I'm taking a lot of meds.
Yeah.
So
I try to stay away from it as much as possible. And if when I look at supplements, I generally try to look at supplements either I personally know who makes it or somebody who I trust personally recommends it. And generally go that route if possible. And I generally find that most of that stuff works just as well. I also have a pretty high pain tolerance. First time I got a massage, they're like, hey, your rib's out of place. I'm like, what are you talking about? And yeah, you would normally feel a rib out of place because it's like a knife stabbing you. So other people describe it. I just didn't even notice.
Right.
So supplements? So I don't take any of that. I do take not every now and then, every week or so I take naproxen because of that spine stuff for headache stuff. But anyway, is there, it's a $1 million industry, obviously, or $1 billion industry, maybe. Is there any benefit? I mean, taking that stuff other than, like I take collagen and I kind of bulk up on some protein sometimes, well, not sometimes, daily with this stuff, just to up the intake on an easier basis than adding 4 steaks or something to my day.
Sure.
But that I just try to keep it at bay with that. Is there anything? Do you have like a supplement list that you recommend? Turmeric and stuff like that you look at that you could share with us?
Yeah. So for me, I do a lot of. I try to match both nutrition and supplementation. I just kind of look at them as the same. I try to match the nutrients with whatever the training phase is. So like when we're doing the eccentric work, I'm doing a lot of collagen, a lot of protein. I don't really need as much fuel, so it's not as exhausting, But if it's the first couple of weeks, like you kind of get fatigued, you're like, all right, maybe I need a little bit of carbohydrates or something like that. When I'm doing the aerobic stuff, you saw that we do the fasting, just kind of maximize the aerobic metabolism. So I try to match up more that way.
Okay.
As it gets to like fall and winter, I'll do a lot more immune stuff. So I'll bump up the vitamin D, especially if I'm not getting sunlight. If you can do cod liver oil, I definitely recommend that because it has both vitamin D, vitamin A, which helps with scar tissue repair.
Okay.
So does vitamin E. So if you ever have like scar tissue, things like that, take some vitamin E. It also has got the fish oil. So cod liver oil is kind of like a good multi thing. Injury wise, eggs are good. Collagen's good, helping the tissue. I'm just kind of like trying it. Vitamin D, I don't know if it's really going to help much, but vitamin D does help with pushing calcium into the bones along with some other things. Zinc and magnesium, I just do to get better sleep because better sleep is going to help me recover better. So I do like a ZMA or magnesium spray before bed, especially during either injury or higher training loads. So I just kind of matched up with the needs. So like, someone might see my cabinet and they see all this stuff. They're like, "Oh man, you take a lot of stuff." It's like, yeah, but I don't take them all the time. You know, it's like
right.
this at a specific time.
Cycles as your training changes.
You know, and as your body changes. So like, you know, I took a bunch of vitamin E because I'm like, I've got some scar tissue I'm gonna have to clean up. So I took some vitamin E yesterday. I'm gonna take some today. So yeah, you just kind of match it up with the needs.
That's interesting. You said vitamin C or vitamin E. My grandma used to always have vitamin E caplets, and if we got injured or something like that, after it was done, she used to rub that on for scarring and everything. There's some real grandma fixing in that.
Yeah, vitamin E's got, I mean, great benefits for. I've heard like scars, like it just disappears. I haven't used it on scars, but I've heard a lot of good stuff about that.
Chicks dig scars, so I just normally let it go.
You know, I mean, that's what I said, and I got scars all over.
It's a story.
Working out for you.
Cool, man. What else you guys got?
I had a question. Do we? I was doing some flexibility. So as we were talking earlier, so like the energy levels. So I've gone from, you know, just the basic army in the morning, you know, PT, an hour of PT or whatever. Usually it's a little less dependent, to like 2 hours in the morning, doing some more yoga or whatever during the like midday, and then doing a workout with the family or the kids in the evening, along with some of that knees over toes, usually in the evening. And I mean, am I tired in the end of the day? Yeah, but like nothing more than normally, really, when I thought about it. I mean, I've absolutely doubled it. I was wondering, is there a should I be looking for something for like overtraining or anything? Because you know, I again 40, so I was like, no, that's not old. You know, people talk mad shit about being 40, whatever. I think that's 40 is the new 20, because I would put 40-year-old me against 20-year-old me all day, every day, and probably 100%. Because I cheat more now. But no, but like absolutely, when it comes down to that. So I was wondering, is there have you seen previous people? Have you seen any indicators of overtraining or anything like that should be watchful for or anything like that? I mean, I usually listen to my body. So like whenever, you know, when it comes down to like running, right? So I have never been, I've done 2 like in the past, like marathons, and just to chuck it off the list, right? And the first one I followed this, you know, like get it off the internet, you know, hey, right, here's a plan to do all this. And I ran that race hurt because I had overtrained monstrously over that, right? The next one that I did was I followed how many miles do I feel today? And I felt, you know, just listen to my body 100%. And I crushed it, like straight up, you know, 320 on the marathon the second time, you know, almost an hour faster, you know, not hurt, and I felt good, you know. So I was just curious to see if you know, overtraining, when it comes down to overtraining, what are your you know, highlights of what you need to look at? Yeah, so I think the big rock, the initial one, is that readiness score you get every day. And
and I don't know if you guys saw the link that I pushed out, but Train Heroic is about to expand your readiness. I guess you could say like the information you're going to see. So you'll be able to see like a history, like, hey, are you increasing or decreasing your readiness? You know, what's your average readiness? It's going to match it up to intensities of workouts. So make sure when you're doing your workouts, you know, you want to match up the intensities. So it'll take those average intensities and match it up to your readiness score. So I think that's kind of a big rock right there. But that's kind of like systemic, right? So when I look at like HRV, which is what I do, so if you got opportunity to HRV from any of the platforms, that's obviously going to tell you your overall systemic level of readiness. The thing you have to be careful of is specific areas. So like for me, my CNS and my cardiac today was actually really good, but we know that I'm dealing with an injury. So at the same time, I've got to be cognizant of individual areas too. So I think between those two, if you take a readiness score or an HRV or some type of systemic look at it, and then just make sure you're checking in on the joints, which the joint mobility helps do.
Okay.
I remember, I don't know, I can't remember when it was, Nathan, maybe earlier this year, midsummer or so.
Yep.
Like we talked because I was like, man, I am like literally dreading going into the gym. Gas. I'm just, and you like, you were like checking my readiness scores and we're like, yeah, man, what's up? And I'm like, I don't know. And we'd been hitting it pretty hard. I'd been hitting it pretty hard. And we just went back and just retooled and went back to, I think we went to ATG and knees over toes. And that was it for like, I think we did that for like a month.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I feel so much better. Yeah. It's just, I think every once in a while, if you're training at a level where you're really working on improving some performance, you're going to have to have those days, that point where you're going to have to reset.
Yep.
And it goes back to what I was talking about before. It was like, it was affecting my my performance in the other areas. And so I was like, well, something's going on here. So let's just reset it and let it rebuild. I think that the biggest thing you can do is listen to your body in that regard. And if you can use the numbers like HRV and stuff like that, but that readiness score is, I've talked about that before. I think it's just gold. Being in tune with that and learning to use that.
And so one of the things, Ephraim, that I don't know if we discussed it at all, but that readiness score can match up to Cal's got a sheet, an Excel doc that basically says, hey, if his happens to be on a scale 1 to 5 also, so it just matched up. So if you're like a 3 or less, hey, you should do these exercises. If you're a 2 or less, you should probably do these things. And it just kind of takes you through some recovery protocols to mitigate the overtraining. Because there's periods of the year, like when you go through the eccentric and isometric phase, you're intentionally getting overtrained. But you'll come out of it, especially so when you do the full triphasics, it's generally 2 to 3 weeks of eccentric, and then you get a download week, and then it's 2 to 3 weeks of an isometric, you get a download week. And so like, by the end of 2 weeks, you're like, dude, I'm ready for a download. And then you hit that download week, and about halfway through, you're like, okay, I'm ready to train again. But you're still going to go through the full download week. And then by the time you come back, you're usually good. So a lot of some of it's planning, some of it's, if you got other life things going on, you just have to monitor that readiness score. And, like Mick said, you just got to take all those factors in.
What is that was the thing that I actually wanted to talk about on intensity. So perceived, how hard was it? Yep. I'm having trouble. I say I'm having trouble, and it's kind of the same thing as you said, kind of high tolerance for pain, right? So like, I am not sure, like, so that the run that we did, that run was terrible. So that was awful. That was awful. So that was up there, right? But that was like really bad. Like I truly cursed you in several religions. But what was?
Are you doing the threshold runs, Ephraim?
Yeah. What is that? Yeah, that's what they were. Yeah, absolutely.
The max heart rate run. Yeah.
Yeah, those suck.
Max heart rate. Oh God, terrible. So anyway, I don't want to remember those terrible days. But
they'll come back.
But outside of that, I mean, my perceived effort, say for I hit, I stay with that, the 90% or whatever it tells me. And I think I'm really starting to dial those in better. But I'm close now. And, Matt, I go up to, I played around with the weights, 1 rep max stuff, go all the way up to where I couldn't go anymore. Like I couldn't do one anymore, and then drop back down a couple pounds and to figure that out. But, so the exertion that I do for it, I said, during the exercise was somewhat hard, but overall, I didn't find it too terrible. Like, I almost relate it to like, well, that day wasn't that bad in comparison to like rap week or something like that, and pre-ranger and stuff like that. Like that was terrible. So like output was like I'm pretty sure I burned like 2,000 calories that half day that first time. So that's I think that's been my problem with trying to accurately put that in there. So because I'm pretty sure it's low most of the time. Like if you had asked me during it, I'd be like, shit, that was hard, bro. Like I barely got that one up. But afterwards, I'm like, it was hard. The effort was, or the workout was somewhat hard when it came down to it. So I'm just trying to make sure I'm not screwing up the rating on how it works.
Yeah, and the other part too is like you said, we're recovering so much better than the average workout. That
exactly.
By the end of it, you're kind of like, but the beginning really sucked. It was really hard when you're doing the main lifts or the French contrast. But then by the end of it, you're like, whatever. So there's a little piece of it, like you just have to take the whole workout as a whole.
Right on.
But then the other thing too, like as long as you consistently rate what you feel, it should kind of even out over time for the most part.
Right on. Okay.
You can think of like an 8 to 10 as like a high intensity day. So in like the TAC-FIT system, an 8 to 10 out of 10 is a high intensity day. Generally it's said that like if you hit a 10, you're probably only gonna hit that like once or twice in a decade. So those are like the shit like a couple times. So your actual like hard workouts throughout the year are probably going to be 8s or 9s. Your 6 to 8 is like a moderate intensity day. So I would say most lifting days probably going to fit somewhere in there. I find a lot of my lifting days are in 5s. 5s a lot of times. And then your 0 to 4 kind of I take back your so we're at your 4 to 6 is your low intensity day. So that's like your yoga, your stretching, your just kind of general work, your knees over toes stuff. And then your 0 to 4, 0 to 3 is, your joint mobility, and just kind of really no intensity.
Right on. Okay. I guess, like you said, I guess it even out, because if that's my baseline normally, then it will definitely the perceived it adjust and make sure I'm at where I need to be.
I would say on average, most of your lifting days are probably going to be like somewhere between 4 to 8, and it kind of has those two variations on easy lifting day versus like, man, that really sucked. Because like the trap bar deadlift, as many reps as possible in 5 seconds, like that takes a lot out of you. But then the rest of the workout, you're kind of like, man, but it's like overall that workout is intensive on the CNS, and like you can feel it.
Right.
Versus, another lifting day might just be like, a pump day where you're just doing some bodybuilding stuff, and like, it may be muscularly intense, but it's really not that bad. So that might be more like a 4 or 5. So it's just kind of just got to throw some numbers out there, and as long as it's consistent with the workout, because like you do the agility drills and you're not gassed at all for the most part, except for the crease runs, because crease runs are awful.
They're pretty heavy duty. I was doing those today. I was like, ooh, gross.
but overall the session, you're kind of like, yeah, it was shorter, so it didn't feel as bad. So you kind of have to weigh it and just kind of like give a good guess.
Okay. Right on.
Cal's recovery manual, he takes the way they break it down to make it even across the board, is they take the intensity number, somebody says, hey, it's a 6, and they divide by the minutes. So, a 6 by 60 minutes is a 10 versus a 8 over 80 minutes is also a 10. So that's kind of the way to kind of like level the playing field.
Okay. Interesting.
And I think that's called SRP, like session RP, or I don't remember exactly how they labeled it. Basically, it was just dividing the minutes by the intensity, and that evened it out over the period.
I like it.
That actually does make some sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's sometimes where you're just like, that was hard, but it wasn't that hard compared to running max threshold heart rate for 9 minutes, which is awful.
Oh yeah, max those threshold runs definitely help you define what is your intensity level.
Yeah, it's like, okay, that's
on the
nice.
other workout.
You definitely learn how time travel seems to slow. You're like, they're like longest minutes in my life.
When it's go ahead.
Like Ephraim was saying, like he did the RAS thing. I went through the EUD prelim course. Like those are hard days. The 9 minutes at max heart rate is worse than any individual thing that we did.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm surprised, like my brain didn't just say like, screw this. Like no one's watching you. Just stop.
Right.
Like I'm impressed with like my mental resiliency to even just keep. I was like, God dang it, how can I? Whoo, that was rough. Like I normally have never run like that unless something was chasing me that had 4 legs. Like
there's something about having a heart rate target versus, hey, just run as hard as you can. Like when you have a metric, we're all competitive, so we're like, well, I gotta hit the metric, and it sucks.
Right.
I've run slower. I've run slow. Like I haven't run that fast for that long, even under fire. Like that. Like it's like real talk. Like,
I think that having a target heart rate makes it really interesting because if you'd put in there run 400 meters at such and such pace,
it's different.
It's different, but I can sit there and be running and looking at my heart monitor, looking at my watch going, oh, I got a little bit more in me, and knowing I have to do it. It just removes, I feel like it removes some variables that you can mentally use as excuses. The surface is different. It's not flat track. It's, it doesn't matter. You need
just get that heart rate up.
90% max heart rate or whatever the number was. I can't remember now. I look at it every time. Go do it.
3 beats from dead.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. Like, I think you get a lot of these, like, especially in the military, we have like running groups or whatever, and you get the fast group.
Yeah.
But are they really running hard like that? No, like they're not. And
never.
And I'm trying to think. It was oh God, what was it? It was another cyclist. It wasn't Lamont. I think was it Lamont? I think it was Greg Lamont. He said it never gets easier. You just get faster, and that's exactly what max heart rate runs on.
Yeah.
I do not doubt that now.
Yeah, and the contrast of that I've been doing is from like Jonathan and Craig of Building the Elite. They do the super slow runs at a very low heart rate.
Yep.
Mentally, those are almost as hard because you have to like take yourself down a peg and realize like, oh, I'm running a 13-minute mile and my heart rate's at 140, and that's like almost too fast for this.
Yep.
It's a totally different gymnastics game you're playing in your head.
Yep.
Have you guys done
Yeah.
the optional cardiac output, which is basically that? It's I think it's 40 to 60%. So I mean, it's like, for me, it's like 120 to 146 or something. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
So just trucking along.
Yeah, I did that on last Saturday, and you're absolutely right, Ned. It's like it's the mental struggle of not letting that little guy in the back of your head go, you should be running 8-minute miles or 7-minute miles,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
No, you have to keep your heart rate here.
Yeah, the heart rate is the goal. Everything else is
Secondary.
doesn't matter.
You can do it on the street, you can do it on a trail, you can do it. I mean, you could do it like in the shallow end of a water if you wanted to, I guess. But either way, you can do it on sand, you can do it on the beach, doesn't matter as long as your heart rate's in the zone.
Yeah. And I found those really a struggle down here in Florida, just the heat and humidity factor.
Drives up your heart rate,
After the 25, 35 minute mark, I'd always hit the point where I have to walk now.
And it's hard with the mouth tape because you're super dehydrated and you can't drink anything because your mouth is taped. You're like, oh God.
Well, on those, I don't even bother bringing water. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go suffer for an hour.
Right. Yeah, I was able to do I think it was 40 minutes down in when I was down in Carson, and just hit the dirt trail, and it was actually kind of nice. Like time actually went by pretty good. I listened to a podcast and just kind of zoned out.
Yeah, if I can find dirt trails, that's always my preference. But at least where my house is at, there's no dirt trails nearby.
That kind of sucks.
I end up running through a lot of people's yards.
I mean, I try to get off pavement when I can, if I can find, dirt on the side or grass on the side or, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do that as much as I can.
So you guys got anything else for kind of return to play, return to work, return to duty?
I had something earlier and I'm trying to remember it now.
Because you had I think you had was it a knee that was busted up pretty good?
I've dislocated my patella 4 or 5 times.
Oh, awesome.
And then the most recent stuff I had was
I think we lost Ned.
He done got frozen.
a friend of mine who's a DO. I forget what the term is, but they're a doctor, but they do a lot of alternative stuff. And he had done some acupuncture with the electrode stimulation, but he was also doing, he called it ozone injections.
Mm-hmm.
He had some machine that he would stick the needle in and pull something out of it and then do those injections on acupuncture sites.
It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, it seemed to work pretty well. It did take a couple treatments. But yeah, just from the day before the treatment to the day after, there was a significant improvement in my mobility and how well I can move.
Nice. Oh, go ahead.
And that was probably the last major treatment that was, unorthodox. Yeah, not the standard rice stuff.
Yep. It's funny. My girlfriend's like, "This is why you need to be more careful." I'm like, I don't think you understand. If I'm going to train for performance, I'm going to test it. Like,
That's just
the reality, you know. And if you're going to play sports, if you're going to play, you know, combative games where people are shooting at you or are fighting, like, you're going to have something eventually. You just have to deal with it, and it's how you deal with it that's really matters.
You don't build a race car to sit in the garage.
Yeah, 100%.
But race cars also break occasionally.
You know, and at the same time, you don't want to, in practice, destroy your race car, and then you can't race. So when you're training, you've got to make sure your training is not the thing injuring you. It should be when you're testing, you know, and you're actually doing something.
Yeah. It is the old adage of you know, the rucking. You know, you don't want to put, you know, 100-pound ruck and go ruck every day with 100-pound ruck. You just need to ensure that you're conditioning your body ability can handle that when the time comes for it.
I got to do it.
I gotta jump off real fast. Sorry, gentlemen. I gotta jump off real fast. I got a guy from work, Fort Huachuca, calling me. He must have an emergency. So.
Oh man.
I'll try to jump back on.
Sounds good.
Me and one of the Marine sergeants in my class got into that exact argument today about rucking. He's like, no, you just got to throw 50 pounds in your back and go for like a 4-hour ruck run to get ready for MARSOC. And I was like, no, pretty much all the actual pros say you should just do like 30 pounds for a few hours at a time and not crush yourself.
You know, I think when it comes to rucking, this is just my opinion on it, is it's very similar to the cardiac output versus the max heart rate runs. I think most people approach it like the max heart rate run, and they should be approaching it like cardiac output.
Yeah, and that was the exact method that the Building the Elite guys use. They're like, no, you don't need to destroy yourself. You need to just get your body used to walking around with extra weight on it.
Yep.
The speed will come when it needs to come.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, that's, you know, in the LE world, we see that with, obviously rucking isn't as big a component, but the SWAT guys wanting to be in full kit all the time. Yep. And I've made that mistake in the past, and it's like, you don't need to do all your workouts in a full attack vest, you know.
Sure.
Maybe a little weighted vest work, but you know, you're just going to tear up your hips and your knees doing that. And what you see is you get poor quality of work. You know, guys doing push-ups in their SWAT vests. Well, they've shortened their range of motion on the push-up. You know, yeah. You know, so things like that, you know, I think you got to ask, does the equipment help you get better at the performance and not tear your body up?
Sure.
And a lot of times the answer is no.
Yeah. And there's simple ways. So like in the firefighter world, you know, one of the things that, I don't know, came out of nowhere, probably from a CrossFit culture would be my guess, is they were wearing full bunker gear and SCBA to go do like deadlifts or something. When really, you can just put on the gloves and you're going to get all the grip work that would come from that benefit. All the other stuff is just excess. Like, it doesn't really add anything. Like, if you want to add a weight vest to your deadlift, it's like, is it actually really doing anything? Which is really what the SCBA was doing, was just adding extra weight. It's like,
you're right.
It's cool, but okay. I mean, maybe towards a peaking phase or something, you know, but I don't know if it was really that big a difference versus just toss on a pair of gloves and you're going to have to work the grip on that deadlift versus anything else.
Yeah. Well, and there's the like firefighter competitions that they do now too. So I think that was part of that as well.
Probably.
And they have race bunker gear now.
Interesting.
Like it's specially made bunker gear to, you know, tailor fitted to do that kind of stuff where it's, you know, cut, you know, a little bit snugger, stuff like that. So it's become a specialized thing,
sport,
which then kind of eliminates any usefulness it had.
Right.
I wonder if that bunker gear is still NFPAA qualified, certified.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it seems like if you're making it trim and everything, it's like, why not just take all the stuff that weighs a lot and just dump it?
Right.
Because if you're looking for performance, like just cut out, 12 pounds worth of excess Nomex. There's your performance.
Yeah, strip the liner out of it and just wear that outer jacket.
Just a shell, yeah. Yeah, man. Well, I don't have anything else. I think it's about dinner time. I don't know if you guys have already ate, but
Yeah,
I'm
wife
getting to that
is
point.
waiting on dinner, so
all
I
right,
probably ought to go
cool,
do
man.
that.
All right, we'll hit it up next time. I'll try not to be as long in between these little Zoom casts, but
Cool.
we'll hit some up. I think we'll maybe get into the 4 coactives next time. There's not any other immediate topic that gets up.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Cool. All right, I will see you guys in the app.
All right.
Perfect.
Catch you later.
Later.
Yeah, thought I had